I can't deny that when I first got into making anime YouTube videos, I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I had been researching and writing about anime for the better part of a decade at that point, including 7 years of running my shitty blog, and I had been in a world where the people I read were primarily people I considered substantially better or smarter than myself. Not to say I didn't have my own sense of pride about what I felt I uniquely offered to the anime blogosphere, but I was an absolute nobody, mostly read by people whom I was also reading. In my mind, anime writing had always been about a community of writers commenting on one another's work and fostering discussion or even argument. Even the people who didn't have blogs but just commented on them were easily recognizable in the community. Some bloggers were even better known for their amazing comments on many other great posts than they were for writing their own blogs. To me, the culture of anime writing was one of people trying to understand one another and compare notes about this thing that we're all trying to puzzle out at once. We've got our own takes and our own stances on the state of things, but we're always talking about it. Always adjusting our positions little by little to better reflect what we've come to know or realized we needed to communicate based on the discussion in our comments. I did not consider myself to be a great writer when I made the transition to YouTube videos and writing about My Little Pony, but I had come a long way, and most importantly, I had tons and tons of knowledge. Making the transition to being an anime guy in early 2014 was the most natural path for me because I know more about anime not only than anything else, but than most English-speaking anime fans who haven't learned to read kanji. However, actually figuring out how to go about making videos about anime was extremely difficult because the culture of anime YouTubing at the time was absolutely nothing like the blogging community. If there were smaller or more tightly knit channels and communities, I did not find them. I came across the likes of Giguk, Arcada, Holden Reviews, and Nino, as well as the Podtaku podcast that they all did together, and it really seemed like this was the whole of what Anitube was at the time. The impression I got from these guys was trying to be like that guy with the glasses, and I wanted no part of that. I wanted to bring the style and culture of anime blogging to YouTube, but I had no idea how to connect that to an audience which was completely and totally unaware of that culture. As I started making videos, I quickly realized that anime fans on YouTube were not watching the kinds of shows that people would have written about in my part of the anime blogosphere, and that they weren't all watching subs, they weren't all downloading everything that they watched through torrents, and they most definitely were not interested in reading. All of this made sense, but it meant that I had a lot to explain and a lot to compromise, and as time went on, I only had to do more and more. It took me way too long to understand that your audience is never going to watch every single thing you do. Even people who literally tell you that they watch all of your videos are most likely being hyperbolic. I know because I quizzed them. Once my channel started blowing up, there started to be more people talking about the kinds of shows that I was talking about, diving deeper into the staff, putting more focus on aesthetics, making videos that don't try to review shows holistically but to look at specific angles of the shows or episodes or the culture or the industry, etc. All of this was normal in the anime blogosphere, and since I had spent my teens copying the styles of every single person I thought was cool, I knew how to cover all of those angles, even if my writing was still fairly mediocre. But as new channels emerged and the culture of Anitube became richer with new styles, I felt a mounting frustration at the fact that in spite of it all, no one seemed to be approaching it with the same values that I was looking for in anime content. New channels were coming out, but none of them were ones I wanted to watch, none which reminded me of the blogs I used to read or were from older, more knowledgeable fans that could teach me something, rather than finding out about stuff from me in the first place. It seemed like everyone cared more about flashy editing than great writing, and no one cared about information density the way that I wanted it to come out of my analytical videos. It seemed like my definition of what makes an interesting analysis wasn't resonating with other people curbing their content into a more analytical direction, so I lashed out and dunked on everyone for not knowing shit and imprecise writing. In the wake of that, I found myself in contact with most of the people that I talked about, and in meeting many of them and talking to them face to face at conventions, I gradually came to realize just how different the goals of these people were and what kind of communities they were trying to build, which had little relationship to my own ambitions. Most of them were interested in trying to involve themselves with the anime industry in some way, and I had never even considered that as something to be striving for. To me, the point was always about having as many people trying to decode anime as possible. Videos that were just made to be entertaining without really saying anything, or which just describe a show and whether the reviewer thinks it's good or not without extensive justification or deeper exploration of the themes, just seemed like a waste of time to me. I've always insisted that everyone should like whatever they like and never ever take shit from anyone about it, especially me. You know I wouldn't take shit from anyone about what I like, and if people ask me how I feel about some anime channel, I'm going to give an honest response. But this doesn't mean I hate these channels or hate their fans. The only thing I hate is not having an anime channel that I truly love and admire because they write like me but better. I have a whole list of video game analysts who I can say that about, at least a few film and music writers, and of course a host of anime bloggers who never transitioned to video, but not a single YouTuber. There are plenty whom I enjoy and think write well and talk about interesting stuff in interesting ways and really deepen my appreciation of the medium, and I'll link them all in the description, but of the extremely long list of YouTubers whom I've taken influence from, the only anime YouTuber I could say had an effect on my own style is Demolition D, and that's mostly in how I deliver scripts and edit gags. In the end, this all makes sense. I spent a long time writing lexical scripts and slapping visuals on there so I can get views, and for most lexicals, it's just not worth the effort of adding an element to their career of something they don't like to do or will have to rely on someone for. If you're a journalist or writer, why not stay in your lane and pursue a traditional writing job? The easy answer is that those hardly exist anymore, but I also think it's worthwhile to face the challenge of figuring out how to add that extra dimension to your content without hating it. To be clear, anime blogs already had a huge visual component because they are dedicated to a visual medium. Screenshots and fan art were usually used to break up walls of text, and bloggers like myself or Ghostlightning would even include slideshows, short YouTube videos, audio clips, and handmade graphs into our posts. If you were writing for an anime website or magazine, your content was being displayed alongside visuals handled by someone else. You can't market pure text to a large enough audience to sell analytical work outside of academia, especially when commenting on a visual medium, and even a lot of academic books have visual aid. YouTubers have found countless approaches to the visual component that work, and I've found plenty which fit the way that I think and don't take a lot of time to do, which allow my work to reach such an exponentially larger audience than they could otherwise and literally fund my life that I can't even imagine at this point being so stubborn as to refuse to convert something I've written into a video. When I wrote a 6,000-word devlog on the creation of my book for its website, I posted it on Twitter and in my Discord and received evidence of literally one person having read it after several days. I then made a video where I read that script straight into a camera for 32 minutes, posted it on my channel, and got 10,000 views and 70 comments. Thanks to my neurotyping chart, it's a lot easier for me to understand what is the appeal of many different channels, even to myself. Anyone would tell you that you should focus on being the best version of yourself and not what someone else wants you to be, and I think it's easy enough for me to follow anyone who's identified themselves perfectly and is doing themselves to the best of their abilities. As long as I can believe that, then I know I'll only ever see them get better. Just thinking about how good the last handful of Super Eye Patch Wolf videos have been, for instance, is a space where that kind of bet has paid off. But at the end of the day, I know what my tastes are. I like hyperlateral, hyper-dense videos, and nothing more lexical than myself. My favorite anime channels, My Japanese Animes, KYDB, Catgirl Research Society, Zen Huxtable, or Gil Lies Here, are all the ones I put up in the upper right corner of my neurotyping chart, and I've taken enormous influence from all of them in how I present my scripts and videos, but not in my analysis. A few people have changed my perspective on this or that thing, but nothing like the gravity of how my entire thinking about media is affected by writers like Filmcrit Hulk, Don Jolly, Mr. B-Tongue, Mr. Plinkett, Chris Ott, Yahtzee Croshaw, Innuendo Studios, and Super Bunny Hop. These are the people I consider to be in my category, my peers in terms of the way we think, understand, and explain ourselves. They are among my biggest influences not just as a writer or as a video maker or as someone who can understand art, but as a thinker. When I listen to them, I'm not just taking in the information, but taking notes on how they came to it, taking notes on how they are explaining it and why I'm so deeply engaged by it. I am also doing that when I watch Endless Jess, Matthew Matosis, Ecoraptor, and Every Frame a Painting, because even though they think differently and present themselves differently from how I do, they have come to conclusions through their own understanding which have massively expanded my ability to understand other people and their creations and broaden my perspective. It's fair to consider me to be an anime girl, and equally fair to consider me a music girl, even a bit of a video game chick, but the amount of YouTube that I've consumed in the time since I became a YouTuber vastly eclipses everything else. If I'm not listening to music, I've got a video on in the background, and I've only leaned more towards video over time. I watch hundreds of video game analysis videos, tons of music coverage, almost daily tech videos from MKBHD, independent journalists We Are Change and China Uncensored, cultural commentators, informative channels, film reviews, book reviews, let's plays, vlogs, and food videos, mostly all about things I don't know or care about. I just like the style of the YouTubers. But even amid the handful of anime YouTubers I follow, I am more likely to skip anime videos than anything else. I am most likely to approach them with a sense of anxiety, wondering if I'm going to walk away from it happy, sad, or simply longing. There's only one anime YouTube series that I watch almost every single week, and that's Anitube Digest. Anitube Digest is run by Shaves, who seems to have a natural interest and curiosity in anyone involving themselves in the anime YouTube scene with even a remote lick of being not shit. His standards and expectations are extremely different from mine, though my favorite thing is that he starts each video vicariously tearing into the shittiest and most frustrating videos of the week for very agreeable reasons most of the time. When he tells me the best videos of the week, I almost never believe him. Most of the time I find them pretty boring, and am glad that whatever the most interesting information is in the video will most likely be explained poorly in brief by Shaves, and I can decide for myself if I care to learn more. It's not that Shaves is anything like the anime YouTuber I'm looking for. His videos as Caribou-kun are great, and he takes great care to know what the fuck he's saying, which is rare in this field and can't even be said about me, and I would probably categorize him as an externalist based on what I know of him. Rather, the appeal for me is the comprehensiveness of the approach and the organization into list form. It allows me a chance to take an interest in Anitube not as someone who has to watch and care about anime YouTube videos, but as someone who cares about knowing who's talking about what and in what way. How are they presenting themselves? Who is doing well? What's new? And what are the names I need to know if I want to swoop in and sprinkle myself into the conversation at my leisure? Basically, it allows me to creepily stalk Anitube from the shadows instead of having to talk to anyone like a normal person, and that's sick. This episode is too goddamn long. So yeah, this was another one of the Otagonzo tape scripts. It's actually 5.2, so now we've done 5.1 and 5.2. That's right. They are meant to have 0.2, 0.3. Each one is a thread. It continues as its own series. So this one, the thread was sort of my experience with Anitube. I wrote these two scripts back to back, pretty much the first 8 Otagonzo tapes I wrote like back to back. The first eight in terms of number. Because, obviously I started releasing them out of numerical order based on which ones I had ideas of how I would edit and turn into video. This one, I did not know how to do that, so there you go. Now you've fucking heard it.